out tonight. So wonderful to see so many friends and neighbors at an event that makes Temple Terrace what it is, such a special and amazing city to live in. I'm Kevin Woodard, and I am in charge of the senior programs here at the Omar K. Lightfoot Center, and I want to extend a warm welcome to all of you and an appreciation for you taking concern and time to be involved in your government. It's our government, and that's why we gather tonight, to learn more and be informed. So as we gather, I think it's appropriate to start this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance to the greatest nation on God's earth.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And while you're standing, if you would just join with me just for a moment of silence as we thank whoever it is that you thank for us being blessed to not be in the path of this hurricane, for us being spared from Irma a year ago, and for all the blessings that we have in our community. Thank you. It's my honor this evening to be able to introduce our moderator. This evening's event will be moderated by Dr. Dan Perry, now in his 30th year of service at Florida College. Dr. Petty attended Florida College as a student in 1970 through 1974. He completed graduate studies in history at the Texas Christian University in 1988. During Dr. Petty then came back to Temple Terrace in 1989 and joined the Florida College faculty. During Dr. Petty's tenure, he has served as the Dean of Students, Department Chair, and currently serves as Academic Dean and Vice President of the college. Dr. Petty is also a member of Rotary Club of Tampa North since 2014 and served as the club's president from 2016 through 2017. Dr. Petty is married to Kathy, his wife of 45 years, and I know you'll join me in appreciating that he has 3 children and 8 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight's moderator, Dr. Dan Petty.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity of serving as the moderator tonight. I'm pleased, I think. We'll see how this goes, and you can help me, and at the end, I'll be able to say truly I've enjoyed this experience. I do appreciate seriously the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Again, my name's Dan Petty. I'll be serving as your moderator. The late United States Senator John McCain is credited with making the following statement. I'd like for you to listen to this carefully. Civic participation over a lifetime, working in neighborhoods and communities and services of all kinds, military and civilian, full-time and part-time, national and international, will strengthen America's civic purpose. Well, such civic participation that Senator McCain spoke of can take many different forms. It includes the opportunity to engage in public service. It includes the opportunity to go to the polls and to vote in elections to choose our public servants. And it includes the opportunity to engage in discussions and civic discourse, such as this candidates forum this evening. So I thank you, as citizens of Temple Terrace, for your interest in our good community. The 4 individuals on the panel tonight are candidates for the City Council of Temple Terrace. And there are 3 vacant seats on the council to be filled in the upcoming election on November 6th. So the purpose of this forum this evening is to provide an opportunity for the candidates to talk to us about themselves, to tell us about their ideas for our city, and help us become better acquainted with them and informed about their stand on issues. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the candidates, and I'll start over here on your left. First is Mr. Gil Schisler. Welcome, Mr. Schisler. Next is Ms. Sherry Donahue. And then on the other side, we have Mr. Don Statz, and then Mr. James Chambers. Now, before we begin the forum tonight, I must outline the format for the evening and provide some instructions and some ground rules that we'll be following. This forum will follow a question and response format. This is not a debate. There will not be rebuttals. There will not be other types of follow-up. And there will be no verbal or oral questions or comments from the audience. We will proceed in rounds in which all four candidates will speak. The first round will consist of opening statements by the candidates. Then there will be a series of question and response rounds in which a question is read, and then the four candidates will each give their response. And in the final round, the candidates will have the opportunity to make a closing statement. Everyone entering the building tonight was given an opportunity to write down your question on a card. And so the question cards have been collected, and no additional questions will be accepted from the audience. Questions must be pertinent to the issues facing the city of Temple Terrace. They must be relevant to the issues the City Council needs to address in the coming years. And they must relate to policies and ideas of candidates in their potential future role as City Council member. So I'm going to be randomly drawing from the collection of question cards that have been submitted. And you must know that because this is a timed forum and we only have a limited amount of time, every question submitted may not be heard. I will also say that as moderator, I do reserve the right to discard questions that are off topic or that have been addressed already by previous questions. Each candidate will be given the opportunity to address each question. For each question, the candidate will have 2 minutes to speak and to offer his or her response. Candidate responses will be timed by Greg Pauley with the assistance of the automatic clock timer device. And here's the way it's going to work. Now, once the question is read, a green light will appear, and that will remain lit for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Green means go. The yellow light will appear when 30 seconds remain. That's a warning. And then a red light will indicate that your time has expired. And if you lose track, we'll remind you that your time has expired. We'll do that as politely and gently as we can. So green, yellow, and red. I'll also say, candidates, that you may either remain seated or you may go to the podium to speak. That's up to you. But do please keep in mind that your 2 minutes begin once the question is read and your name is called. Also, candidate responses will be rotated in each round so that each candidate will have the opportunity to be the first person to answer a question. And then at approximately 8:45 p.m., we will end the question and answer response segment, and we'll conclude the round that we are on at that time. And at that time then, the candidates will each have the opportunity to make their closing statement, and we intend to conclude the forum at 9:00 p.m. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 4 cards. Each has a candidate's name on it, and I'm going to do that to determine the succession, the order of these rounds. And so the winner is, okay, first in the order is going to be Sherry Donahue. And following Ms. Donahue will be James Chambers. then next will be Don Stats. And I think we know who goes next. Gil Schizler will be last in that sequence. So Sherry Donahue, James Chambers, Don Stats, and Gil Schizler. We'll be following that order, that sequence throughout the night. And we'll be rotating as we go through. So before we begin with the questions, the first round now is going to consist of the candidates' opening comments, and each candidate is going to be given 3 minutes to make this opening statement and introduce themselves. So we're going to begin with Sherry Donahue, please.
I'm the one who gets to check out the microphone.
That's good.
Is it working?
Yes.
So I also think that I'm the one who gets to look out into this crowd first and say, this is what makes us amazing. Look at all of you. Look at each other. You see your neighbors. You see people you've met in the grocery store. And hopefully you also see your sitting city councilwoman. My husband and I moved here in 1976, and we thought we just couldn't believe our good luck. We raised our 4 kids here. We went to church here and went to school here, and we got involved right away. And the reason we got involved right away was because we were welcomed everywhere we went. And that's the way it is to this day. You can join, you can participate, or you can benefit. And most of you, as I look out into this room, have been involved in some capacity, in some way that I have. So Mike and I decided that we weren't just going to live here, we were going to be a part of something big. And that big was the little city of Temple Terrace. And thank goodness. So we sent our kids to school, and just like so many of you, we started our path in the schools, and then it turned into Little League, and then it was involvement in church, and then thank goodness I found the Junior Women's Club. And do you know why I say thank goodness? Because as a mom of 4 kids, I got to go out at night by myself. It was a saving grace. But it also taught me leadership and how to involve myself and to do things that didn't have necessarily always to do with me, but had to do with the citizens that I was working for, with the children I was working for, with the neighbors I was working for. And so every step of the way, whether it was in the elementary school reading stories or setting up an arts program, or if it was in the Junior Women's Club all those many years, even after I was clearly no longer a junior, those projects were things that benefited the city of Temple Terrace. And every step of the way, thank goodness, I had the benefit of being able to be a leader in those roles. And so the last step, and for some reason this one may seem to be a little ironic, was that the Rotary Club and the city of Temple Terrace were looking for something to attract people to our beautiful city. And so of all the crazy items we landed on was a craft brew fest. And I probably don't look like the type of person who would bring something like that to our city, but guess what? Every year for the last 4 years, 1,500 people have found their way to Temple Terrace, and we have raised $100,000 for charities in the local area. So I'm happy to be your leader, and I'm happy to be your councilwoman, and I hope you will keep me there on November 6th. Thank you.
Mr. James Chambers.
Well, I want to start off with a story. 1972, behind this building, the city started building 4 tennis courts. And I was a teenager, had come to this building, the Lightfoot Center, which was the only rec center back then. And I got interested in tennis. They were built right behind here. I grew up the road. And I started playing tennis. And it was known somewhat, a bunch of us, as a tennis rat, just hung out at the courts. The director at that time, the first director, Ken Boyd, he came to me and he said, you know, you're here all the time anyway, especially the weekends. Would you like a job? So, junior in high school in 1973, I started my employment with the city of Temple Terrace. And it was all about tennis and all about what the city did with building these tennis courts. With that, King High School had its first tennis team in 1973, and I was a junior, and that's where I met my future wife, Beth. She was on the girls' team. So for 38 years, we've been married 38 years, and I met her all because of the tennis courts, the city, and this rec department. That's good or bad, you can figure that out. So, it's all good, by the way. So, thank you. I'd better say that. So anyway, in my career, I retired 2.5 years ago from the city after 43 years working in Parks and Recreation. And the last 15 years as Director of Leisure Services. Parks and Rec added the library 8 years ago, and I became the Director of that also for Leisure Services. And in that, I had a $4 million budget, well over 100 employees, this building, the Family Recreation Complex, 3 athletic fields, 3 nature parks, 11 neighborhood parks. My department was in charge of all the city median and right-of-way maintenance, mowing and retention ponds around city facilities. Quite a large endeavor, and I think I did a very, very good job on that. Also, I was City Employee of the Year. Can't remember the year, it was a long time ago. And I also won the Fran Bawford Public Service Award while I was working. After I'm working, I continue to be involved with the city in my last 2.5 years. I'm Vice President of the Arts Council. That's the group that does the Arts Festival, Art en Blanc, summer art projects for the kids, and city art. I'm also the Vice President of the Golf and Country Club, and been instrumental in turning that around. I hope I have been. I head up the golf tournament committee and the social committee for more activities at the club. I'm also on the library board appointed by City Council. I was on the Charter Review Committee. I'm on the Temple Terrace Pickleball Board of Directors. That's a new sport up and coming, so we all play at the rec center. And in my hobby is powerboat racing. I'm a crew chief on a national team, and I'm the national chairman of that organization. Anyway, I would love to stay involved with the community as your representative to City Council. Thank you.
Next is Mr. Don Statz.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, taking time out of your schedules to see who might be the best candidates for your next city council. I appreciate that. My name is Don Statz. I've lived in Temple Terrace for 43 years. And I've had a business in Temple Terrace for 35 years. I've been married to Kathy for 46 years. And we have children, grandchildren, and they're all here in Temple Terrace, which is great for us because my wife said, if they move, we move. So I'm guessing we're staying here. But anyhow, we own the Victorian Village on Fowler Avenue. My wife ran that gift store for 22 years. And a quick story, when I was out about walking, knocking on doors, I'd say, my name's Don Statz, et cetera, et cetera. We own the Victorian Village. Everybody go, oh, you're Kathy's husband. So I immediately had a lot of credibility. My background is building and developing. It's essential that Temple Terrace have somebody with my experience on council at this time because of the downtown redevelopment. Over the course of years, we've developed, I've been instrumental in more than $50 million worth of taxable properties in Temple Terrace. We've annexed numerous properties. And the reason we did that is because we believe in Temple Terrace. It costs a little more for taxes, but we still believe in Temple Terrace. Police and fire are big things. I currently sit on the strategic committee for the country club representing the city. And that was put together quite simply because the club and the city were trying to keep things going in a forward direction. And with the help of the city manager, city council, board of directors, including Mr. Chambers, we're starting to go in the right direction. I think you go by there, you'll start to see some good things happening that already have happened. I also am a member, or have been a lot of events where we've donated time, money, and effort through the store. I've been involved, my family's been involved in numerous food drives. We've donated hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food. St. Vincent de Paul, we've donated lots of time and effort to that. So in the event that I should be lucky enough to have your support and become the next city councilman for Temple Terrace, I will give that my salary of $260 plus or minus to local charities. including the food banks and some of those things. And of course, I would love to have your support come November 6th. And again, thank you for coming out.
Mr. Gil Schisler.
Good evening. My name's Gil Schisler, and I'm running for Temple Terrace City Council. This is the entry that I use when I'm walking down the street and I'm knocking on doors. And I tell the people that have answered the door that I want to be your city council member. I want to be your city council person. I ask you to look at my paperwork, look at my website, look at my Facebook page. And if there's anything that we can agree upon, I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th, okay? I've been here for 45 years. I moved here in 1973 with my family from Philadelphia. I met my wife, Lisa, who I see her back there now if I get here for work. My kids are back there, my two children, born and raised Temple Terrace schools, went to proud graduates of USF as am I. My wife works at Moffitt Cancer Institute. We've been married for almost 41 years now. Our grandchildren live here. Alex and Cameron and Kinsley and Avery. They go to Temple Terrace schools. When I finally decided what I wanted to do in my giving back to the city, which is something that I've always wanted to do, I looked around and I got involved with the charter Board of Adjustment, and I was appointed as a charter member to the School Improvement Task Force. I've served on the SAC committee for Lewis Elementary, SAC committee for River Hills Elementary School. But I think the biggest thing that I've done is I've been a charter board member and a treasurer for Terrace Community Middle School. I don't think there's very many people here that don't know where Terrace Community Middle School is, but we've done a pretty good job, and we're very proud of what we've done. I got a lot more to offer, and I want to be the city council person that is the person who helps bring this city together. We have some divisiveness now, and I think that I'm the one that can help do that. I appreciate everybody coming out here tonight. I hope everybody I hope we get the questions and answer that allow us to give the answers that will help you all make an informed decision and an informed vote. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to serving as your council person, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. So now we're going to begin the question and response rounds. And for each question, each of you will have 2 minutes to speak and offer your response. And in order now, we're going to begin with Mr. Chambers to answer the question. So the question for this round is this: what is your position on the 3 proposed Temple Terrace Charter amendments? Mr. Chambers.
Okay, I'm going to stay at my seat just because it's a long night. If you have trouble seeing or hearing me, then I'll stand up there. My 3 positions. For number 1, that's the mayor going from 5 council to 4 council and the voting mayor. I oppose that. I think I was on the Charter Review Committee. It was a good discussion. But I voted against that, but I lost that vote and we went forward with it. But I personally oppose that. I think we have a need for a separation of the mayor doing different functions of a city council member that votes. So I oppose number 1. Number 2 and 3, I support. 2, especially if one fails, then yes to 2, because that structures when council can come vote. Or come into office, excuse me. And number 3 is just a lot of clerical errors and changes, and I think that needs to be approved also.
Thank you, sir. All right, so next is Mr. Stats.
The 3 amendments are something that you as residents are going to have to decide whether you want them or not. The first amendment, of course, is the one that wants to change to go from 5 council members to 4 council members and have the mayor vote. You still have the same representation that you have now, The only real difference is that we won't have a mayor with veto power, although that veto power has only been used maybe once or twice this past 20 years, 30 years. One of the things that I found concerning about that mayor position was past mayors, how they would have really liked to take their time and efforts that they spend on the outside and bring them to council and be able to vote on the various items. The second part of number one is state statutes require that you only have to be a resident of the city for 1 year to run for office. Our charter says 2 years, so we need to fix that. Second part is verbiage in when you can run after you've been in office. It was you couldn't run before 2 years, which basically meant you couldn't be on council for 4 years. So they cleaned that up to say that you can't hold office for 2 years. The third part is pretty much just housekeeping. The charter was written a long time ago, and of course it says his without hers. So we need to go in and change all of those things, a lot of grammatical things. But just in general, the charter amendments are really a thing that you have to take and look at and see what you think is in the best interest of the city.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shisley.
Well, I could probably stand up here for the rest of the evening and discuss on these matters because it's a very complex issue. I also was on the Charter Review Commission with James, and yeah, it was a lot of discussion on all three items. And the Charter Commission, the Charter Review Commission was charged with looking at the current structure. It's not something we came up with. This is what we were tasked to do, and to come up with an alternative. All well knowing that no matter what we came up with was going to come back to the voters for a yes or no. We did that. We came back with an alternative. And if the alternative passes, great. If it doesn't, it's fine. There's no harm, no foul. The first one is a complex one, and it does give the mayor gives the mayor a vote. Doesn't change the number of people who vote on issues. It just changes who does it. But there's a problem with each one. There was supposed to there's verbiage in each item that needs to be fixed, but it's not being addressed properly in the current structure of it. Item number 2. So I'm a soft yes on number 1. We really there's issues in there that need to be addressed, particularly with length of time, residency requirements. Number 2, there's one word that messes up number 2, and unfortunately that word was put in after the fact. And it's not the administration's fault. It was done in a work session. And number 3, number 3 needs to pass because there's so many janitorial, there's Scrivener errors, there's issues with gender that just need to be fixed. And we shouldn't have to bring those back to the city, to the public every time something needs to be fixed. As long as it doesn't change the nature and the intent of the issue that's being discussed. That's just something the council should be able to do. Still takes 2 public hearings, still gets addressed properly. I'm a yes on all of them.
I think I'm next.
You are. Ms. Dunn.
The good news is you all know how I voted. So I can't stand up here and tell you that I agree with this charter. I'm a no, absolute. Yes, as has been pointed out, it's a matter of semantics. So we're not worrying about that. Let's be honest. If the charter right now said that you would save all of our information on a floppy disk, there's no such thing anymore. So there are some things in the charter that absolutely don't exist anymore, and those things will be done no matter how you vote. But 1 and 2 are problematic. Number 1 is problematic because right now you have 6 people who all have to know every single issue. They have to talk to the citizens. They have to listen to the city manager. They have to talk to the directors if allowed. They need to know exactly how they're going to vote on an issue. But you also have a mayor who goes out and represents the city. That mayor sits on the MPO, sits on other voting boards, and has a true responsibility to represent each of you. So now you will go from 6 people to 5. And it's definitely not a budget issue because we aren't paid enough money for that to be an issue. And number two is a problem because right now, while the charter committee tried to fix an error, what happened was they complicated it because they added that one little word called same. So right now, you can run for city council, you have to wait out a term, and then you can run again. Or you can run for city council, finish that, and run for mayor. And the main reason for that is that one of you has a vote and the other one doesn't. But the new wording says same, meaning that term limits will be ended, and you will go from a voting mayor to a voting council member back to a voting mayor. So I say vote no, no, and yes. But right now I'm saying just vote no.
Thank you very much. Okay, for the next round, we're going to start with Mr. Stats, and this is the question for the next round. The city of Temple Terrace is often criticized for being difficult for the business community. If you are elected, what steps do you think the city could take with regard to this reputation? We'll begin with Mr. Stats.
Well, this is an area that I have a lot of expertise in. I've had to deal with the city on many, many occasions. And on some of those occasions, they have been pretty difficult to deal with. We go through the whole permitting process every time we build a house. Subdivisions, we go through intensive applications and questions and answers. That's gotten better. Over the years, it was pretty difficult, and a lot of builders wouldn't even come out to Temple Terrace because it's just too complex to get a permit. So it scared them away. The new city administration has worked very hard with the department heads. Some of the department heads have been changed, and there's kind of a whole new feeling in the city. And if we have an issue now, especially my son, who's still in the building business, he takes it to the department and says, this doesn't work, can we fix it? And they work with them. So that's a step in the right direction. Same with some of the other departments. We had an issue with getting a business permit, take up to 4 weeks, which is, unacceptable. Went to the city manager, and he said, we'll expedite it. So now, it doesn't take 4 weeks anymore. It should take a few days. It's a simple application to have a business. Unless it's a restaurant or whatever, then it's a whole nother world. But just in general, it is getting better. The reputation is getting better. I know a lot of contractors that are now coming back to Temple Terrace. They know that Temple Terrace is tough, and you better have a permit if you're going to work here, which is what we want, because the permits are there to protect the citizens. And we need to have good contractors here, and part of the system creates good contractors.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Thank you. This is a good question. This is one of my main issues. And if you look on my website, it'll go into much more details than what I'm going to say here. The first thing that we need to do is we need to bring together a grouping, a working group consisting of business people who in the area. We need to bring together the department heads. We need to bring together citizens and come up with a working group that says, hey, look, we got a problem here. We know it's there. We hear about it all the time. There's businesses that have spent $1 million trying to move in here, and if they had to do it over again, they wouldn't try the Temple Terrace. Let's take this apart. Let's figure out what's wrong. Okay, and then we'll fix it. Let's analyze it. We have a zoning issue, then let's fix it. It needs to be done. Bring it back to council so the council can make the proper corrections. If it's a timing issue, as Don was saying, let's fix the timing issue. Why does it take so long? And you know something? If there is not a problem with a specific area, then we need to come back and educate everybody. Educate the public, educate the business community, and say, you know, it really is working pretty good. It goes both ways. So let's figure out what is wrong. Let's figure out how to fix it. Case in point, I believe, don't quote me on this, I believe it was a building contractor's manual, a process for them for a permitting. It was 40 pages long. I know that the current administration has reduced that down to 4 pages. Maybe a little bit off on the numbers there, but it's an example of if we bring it to the administration, if we sit down, figure out what's going on, figure out what's wrong, we can fix it. And then we can educate the public, and I think that reputation will go away very quickly. Thank you.
And then Ms. Donahue.
One of the surprises you have when you start on council is that as a citizen, you can show up at a department and say, hey, I need you to help me fix this. And then you become a city council person and you find out you can't do that anymore. Now that doesn't mean that you can't look into it with the citizen and you can't listen and you can't see if you can work out something. When I was with the chamber, I was executive director of the Chamber of Commerce here in Temple Terrace, we had a group of business people who said, we have got to be able to change the sign ordinance. So we sat down with the city manager at the time, Mr. Leinbach, and we looked to see if there was some way that we could soften the rules. Not change them, but soften them. And so therefore we've now allowed people to put up a banner. They can put one up for a short amount of time. So if you're having a sale, you can say you're having a sale. But there are sometimes rules that if you change them too drastically, you've ruined the intent. And you've taken us from being the beautiful Temple Terrace, let's face it, drive outside of the city limits and see what you find. So we don't want to throw away all the regulations. Ask Houston about that. Ask the people who are in Florence, South Carolina about that, about how not having enough regulations and what it did to them in the long run. So what I propose is that we follow the directions that are before us, listen to the businesses, and see how we can change them if they will continue to keep our city as clean and as beautiful as it is.
Mr. Chambers.
Okay, so I had to get up. That's okay. We kind of agreed not to, but sorry, but I don't want to be left out. All right, so yes, businesses in the past have had the reputation of having hard dealings with the city. I also agree that that's changed drastically, and that's due to the hard work of our city staff and our current council. We also, to get that word out, we have to do a better job of advertising. And one of the things our city has done is hired Greg Pauley, sitting over there, as our business manager. And I think one of his duties is to get the word out and work closely with business to identify the problems. And then it comes back again to city council. And I hope that everybody on council will be very responsive to what they hear from staff on making these changes to help our business.
Okay, so Mr. Schiffler will begin our next round. And the question is this: what will each candidate do to move the new town development forward? Because Joe looks lonely.
Redevelopment is a serious situation, a very complex problem that we do have right now. Yeah, there's a lot to be done. We stood in here for 2 years ago in the last election, and everybody was anxious for it to happen, and we still haven't turned a single shovel full of dirt. So yes, we need to move this forward. We need to. I still say everybody's standing on the edge of the pool, and they're still waiting for somebody to get in the water first. We have to get Paragon moving. We have to get Richmond Group moving. Once we get those done, they're going to attract other businesses. We have to work on Parcel B, and then ultimately we can get Parcel C. But we have to get started. We have to keep it moving. One of the things that I think we should do is a regular report on the status during council meetings. I go to almost every council meeting that there is, and yet we don't always hear what the current status is unless it's requested. So I think that needs to become a focal point of our meetings. It is the biggest issue. It's our biggest debt at $24.4 million, and we really need to get to the bottom. We need to fix this. We need to move forward. We need to turn dirt. We need to get our contracts taken care of and move forward. Once we get that done, the rest of it will take care of itself over time. We need the TIF monies from it. We need the property built. You drive down there, it looks like a wasteland, and we all know that. Everybody sees that each and every day as you drive up down 56th Street. I think with the proper leadership, and we're not here to make the rules, we're here to set policy. And the administration will do what we need to do, and we'll get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Donahue?
I would say that this was a white elephant in the room, but we all know it's bigger than that. Every time someone comes to us, we have to stop looking backwards and look forward. They are going to come to council because that's where it starts. We have hired a search company to find those people, but all of us need to be involved in asking people to consider Temple Terrace. We had a wonderful project come before us. We've had several projects come before us, and they've been put on hold. I'm not sure why they were put on hold, but for some reason, as Mr. Schisler said, we were afraid to jump into the pool. I think we should be talking to anybody and everybody who is looking to build in Temple Terrace. Not everybody will be good for us, but if we close the door and just open it a crack, and we're so afraid to talk to somebody who's going to do something a little bit different, I would love to see a tall building full of workers who go to lunch, who get their cars fixed while they're here. Maybe they live here, they decided to live here, they play golf, all those things, and that will come not necessarily from retail. We can't hang our hat on retail. Retail has changed. All of us know that. We all use a mouse to shop, and some of us don't like to admit it, Chamber of Commerce person that I am, but we do it. So we can't be hanging our hands on that, but we need to get moving. We need to listen to the people out there who are interested in coming to our city and think going vertical.
Okay, the question of what would I do to help move this project forward? First and foremost, again, we have 2 parcels that are under contract. I don't know, I've been to council meetings, I don't know the outcome of that. We need to have regular reports. I heard that already tonight, but regular reports to council. We need to keep demanding staff to work towards this. And then when projects come before city council, we need to move forward on those. I've been involved, I was in the charrettes years ago for that. I've seen the projects. I worked on the art center that didn't go anywhere. I did all that. We need to move forward. And one is to keep the reports coming, keep city council informed, and our city council has to demand that we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Mr. Staff.
This is an area that I can speak in depth on in being a developer. Peregrine is now under contract. They put down $240,000 non-refundable money. They're supposed to close by the end of this month, and hopefully we'll have construction going within the next 30 or 60 days thereafter. I'm a firm believer that activity stirs activity. We have to do something, we have to do it soon, but we have to be responsible. We can't just have somebody come in and say, well, I'm going to do this, and we go, yeah, that sounds great, but it's not good. It's not good for the community. That's what we have to be responsible about. We have to make sure that what we put in there is going to be good for the citizens. That takes a lot of intense scrutiny, and we just can't haphazardly make decisions based on, we got to do it now. We're currently paying about $1.2 million in interest. Of course, that's a big burden. As we go along, get that number down, that'll certainly help us. I've also, as well as Mr. Schisler, attended nearly every council meeting for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I have pretty much a lot of experience in hearing all of the proposals that the city's had. And recently one was brought to the city, and it was from a developer that wanted to pay us $9 a square foot for the land. I got up and I said, that's unacceptable. The man down the corner paid $27 a foot for the land. Granted, that's not worth as much down there, but it's certainly worth a whole lot more than $7 or $8. And that's where we need to be responsible.
Thank you. So our next round, Ms. Donahue is going to be first to answer. I will tell you that I just had to discard about a half a dozen of these cards because They all have to do with city development. There's a lot of interest in
Absolutely.
that topic. But here's one that's related to it, but I'd like to read this and ask you to address this question. And it pertains to city redevelopment debt. I think it was just touched on. As a future city council member, will you vote to place into the budget a principal-only extra payment to pay down and pay off the debt? And if yes, how much and why?
That is above my expertise. And that's why we have financial advisors. Absolutely, though, I can't give you an amount. That's beyond what I would be able to come out of the top of my head this evening. Perhaps the other candidates can. But I can tell you that we have legal and financial experts who should be helping us and guiding us in making the right decisions. Yes, we need to listen to them. Doesn't mean we always have to take their advice. But when we've hired these experts to handle these issues for us, these are things that we need to listen to. We've had some experts in the past who have given us advice, and we've said, no, we think we'll go in a different direction. It didn't always work out so well for us. Didn't always pan out, and we took a chance and it didn't work. But I do agree, obviously, in order to pay back this debt, we have to sell the property, but it's not going to come from selling the property. It's definitely going to come from putting the right thing in that spot so that the tax base grows enough to take care of the debt. So we're not getting our money back. You know, it's like the homeowner that bought their house at the height of the market. That's where we are. We're underwater, and we're not going to get it back from just the sale of that property. But I think we need to be looking at what the future will bring and what those TIF dollars will bring and what the tax base will bring when we're considering those projects. So absolutely, the answer is we need to pay down that debt and pay it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers?
I certainly feel the same way. I would love to say that we could put in the budget a set payment, but I don't see how I could do that, and I certainly couldn't guess at an amount. Every year the budget fluctuates. We're in a good spot right now with property values going up, and there could be some room to put that in there, but that may not always be the case. And I would hate to be able to have to cut services to our citizens to pay that. I'm in firm agreement that if we get something built down there and we start generating some ad valorem and TIF money down there, that'll go towards freeing up money to pay that debt off.
Thank you.
This is a significant problem. We have about $26 million in debt. If we take all of the properties and sell them, my estimation is we're going to be about $12 million short. That's a problem. We have to pay some every year. Now, if you take what we'll get in taxes with the new projects, we should come up with about $900,000 a year. Our tax debt will be, or our interest debt will be about $680,000. So we're going to have a plus number there. But we have to take that plus number and immediately put it towards the principal. We have to budget some money every year. We cannot continue to just kick the can down the road. It's not doable. Because every year that we kick the can down the road is another year we're paying more interest. So it's essential that we put into the budget, we have to find the dollars. And if it means maybe not buying a certain truck for $50,000 for this department, maybe we can get it next year. We have to be responsible. And my business background tells me that you can't continue to have debt. It's going to come back and haunt you, as it is us. Again, we have $26 million. That's a lot of money. The debt that we have cannot be paid off overnight. So we need to come up with a viable plan, whether it's $400,000, $500,000 a year, depending on what properties we sell and what taxes we generate. But we do need to find a significant amount and reduce that debt, because even at $400,000 or $500,000 a year, it's going to take a long time to pay it off.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shisley.
Okay, our current debt structure, we've got $24.4 million tied up with the redevelopment area. We have existing 2 loan agreements that that the city spent a lot of time renegotiating and got approved this last year. Some of it's interest only, and that'll be paid off with the sale of the properties, that portion of it. And I believe that's a 10-year balloon. The other runs for a full 20 years, and that runs about $14 million. That is the only one really where we have any significant opportunity for accelerated pay down. But again, it comes from where the dollar's going to come from. The redevelopment concept is where you take the property, sell it, and you work off of what's called TIF money, the tax incentive, or the tax incremental funding. With that is we get 100% of the increased property tax value over what the land was before. We had that for 25 years. We've already wasted 9, 10 years, probably 10 years of that now. So we only have about another 12 to 14 years where we're going to benefit from that. So it's going to impact our budget. So yes, we can find additional revenue sources within our budget, but we got to be careful. We can't cut our needs for our wants. We have got to be able to cover our services and everything else before we can kick extra money to our debt fund. The debt fund, the way it's structured now, with the TIF, assuming everything gets sold in a relatively timely manner, and the dirt gets turned and everything goes into production and occupied, the TIF monies will take care of that. Then we'll have the revenue sources to possibly pay down the debt in an accelerated fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Donahue. Oh, well, I'm sorry, we've already done it. So we're ready for our next round. Mr. Chambers will be next. Considering our debt issues, what can be done to stem the high turnover within our first responders? Mr. Chambers.
Okay, well, that's kind of a two-part, but the first responders, we have a very bad need for first responders, more so in police than fire, but we still have that. And that's a couple of different reasons. One is the pay structure. Our firefighters and our police officers are behind the curve when it's compared to the surrounding municipalities in the county. So that's where they go. Also, probably some of the benefit package, insurance costs and stuff like that. So we have to look and examine that. Now, also with regular city employees too, that's an issue, but not quite as much with police and fire. So how do we do that with our budget? We need to, again, get redevelopment going, which brings in more revenue, which allows us to spend more on salaries on that. In the short term, I know there's incentives for people to be hired in the police department. We need to look at those incentives, see if there's a little bit more incentives we can do. Same thing for fire department, look and then do a better job marketing to the different areas. The trouble is Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department, they're looking for deputies. I know City of Tampa is looking for officers, so people are going to go there first. So there's not a great short-term solution other than marketing and hoping that next year in our budget, if we have a good increase like we did this year, that we put more money in towards those two entities.
Thank you. Mr. Stats?
This is one of the big issues that I have, and it's on my platform. It's right up there on the top. I received the endorsement of both the fire and the police. Police is a significant problem. Right now, we're down 12 officers out of 52. That's 24% of our staff. What that means is every 12-hour shift, we have 6 less cars on the road. I've been doing a little bit of research, talking with various people. There's a number of issues that we need to address. One of the big ones, of course, is, like everybody in this room, insurance. We need to make better insurance available at better prices. An example, the policeman makes $50,000 a year. His family coverage may cost him $1,200 a month. 1,200 times, 12 is a lot of money. Doesn't leave a whole lot if you got 3 or 4 kids. So that's one of the things. The STEP program is another thing. Our STEP program is behind significantly the county, Tampa, even Plant City, and Zephyr Hills. The STEP program basically says you have to be here this long before you can move ahead. And we just don't have that program, and we need to accelerate it much faster. The biggest thing is, if we're down 24% on our police force, that's a terrible injustice to our citizens. One of the biggest things that I find when I'm out knocking on doors is, where are the patrol cars for speeding? Everybody asks me that question. And I asked the chief. The chief says, Don, we don't have the guys. We don't have the people. So they can't enforce it. So we need to figure out what it is. And I can assure you, if you elect me, we'll figure it out. And we'll get it fixed.
Thank you. Mr. Shislett.
I believe there's a relatively simple fix to a very complex issue. Again, our first responders do a phenomenal job, and they are understaffed in police at this point. And again, it comes back to the progression range. We start out relatively equal, all the municipalities and all the agencies. As they rise, we rise. But we rise. It takes longer to get to the top for Hillsborough, for Temple Terrace. It takes 16 years for the officers to reach the maximum, whereas the other agencies are like 9 and 10 years. So come year 6, we're no longer equitable. We're no longer in the same range, and they leave. We lost an officer not that long ago, within the last 2 months, who went to the Seminole Indian Casino Police Agency, okay? And it was all dollars, it was all money. That coupled with the insurance issue, which is true. Our insurance, we only offer $647 per month to the employee as a source to fund their insurance. You cannot buy family insurance for the family coverage that you can afford in the $600 range. So we need to review that. That goes for citywide, because it's not just the uniformed officers. It goes for the fire department, sanitation. But if we can come back and we can fix, and the other thing is an intangible is education opportunities. The current budget has a small amount in it for continuing education. A USF patrol officer can get free college on campus. Okay, we can't offer that. But if we come back and we can fix the progression scale so that it's more equitable, we don't lose people after we've trained them for 5 or 6 years. It costs like $100,000 per officer to get them to that level. And then we lose them, and we're a great training ground for everybody else in the area. Thank you.
Ms. Donahue.
So everybody has an idea of how to fix the structure. But let's face it, in this room, if I asked you all to raise your hands, if you totally supported our first responders, there wouldn't be a single person who would keep their hand down. And if I also said to you, well, this year our property values went up 11%, and so we decided to cut your taxes 0.40. And because that, we could give them a 6% raise, but there are some other things we couldn't do. You probably would all raise your hand and say, I'll give it back. It's not enough. It's not going to make a big difference in your budget, but it makes a big difference in our budget. Let's face it, we cannot cut the budget when we need to help the employees. And the employees deserve to be paid more than they are paid now. They deserve for their insurance benefits. I mean, there's a whole package of things that needs to be fixed. But it all boils down to one thing, the cost. And if you appreciate them as much as I do, then you probably, if I gave you a choice, if I put it on the ballot and I said, do you really want to cut your taxes by $50 a year? You would probably say, heck no, I want the library to stay open longer, and I want those 12 officers to be hired. And I want to make sure that at some point soon, y'all start looking at building a police station. Do you know that when they arrest someone, they have to haul them up the same elevator or the staircase that you and I go up? That puts our officers at risk. And that is a morale issue as much as a pay issue.
Thank you. Okay, now for our next round, Mr. Stats will begin. Question: How can the city control growth in the northeast section of town, Morris Bridge Road and 27 Telecom Park?
Repeat that, please.
How can the city control growth in the northeast section of town around Morris Bridge Road, 127, and Telecom Park?
Well, basically, we're now talking about an area that recently was given the okay to move ahead with, I believe it was 200 new residents right off Morris Bridge Road. And evidently, that's what we're talking about here. We need to have annexation, but it has to be responsible annexation. And this is an opportunity for us to bring up our tax base and generate some new tax dollars. As far as the high-tech park, that's the best development anybody could ever ask for. We can't get enough of that. It takes minimal amount of services, tax bases are good on it, so it's just quality annexation. A lot of that property up there is not within the city limits. So what would have to happen if we're going to be involved in it is it would have to be annexed into the city. So we don't have a great deal of control on it now. That's the vast majority of it is Hillsborough County. So if it would be brought in, we need to look at it responsibly and say, is this a good project? We have to weigh our pros and cons. How much is it going to cost us for services, and how much are we going to generate in revenue and taxes? And if one is higher than the other by a significant amount, it's just not a good deal for us. So we have to, again, we have to look at each and every annexation piece really, really hard, because we don't want to annex a whole bunch of houses and we got to send out police and fire and apartments. They're one of our biggest drains on our first responders. So we don't want to put a whole bunch of apartments out there. And again, it's all in the county right now. Not all, but most of it.
Thank you. Mr. Schiffer.
Considering the location in question, there's probably not a whole lot that we can do in the Telecom Park area. The Telecom Park area is essentially built out. There's not a whole lot of property left up there. However, on the other side of Morris Bridge Road, as Don had indicated, they just annexed in a rather large area and on the other side of Old Morris Bridge Road. And I know that there's concerns in the public or in that area of people who, how are they going to get in and out? You're going to increase the traffic flows up there. So I believe that's the genesis of the question. Again, it goes back to annexation. Careful analysis of what will it bring to the city, what is it going to cost us to do, to take care of. We probably are on the, I wouldn't say on the verge, but we're probably on the outer edge of requiring a third fire station due to the size of the city. And I think that that's going to be something that we need to address. But again, it's sensible, thoughtful. Do we need it? Can we pay for it? Can it pay for itself? Without adding too much stress to the existing services and service levels for the rest of the city. As far as much else with that, not much else we're really going to be able to do with it except to carefully plan it. Thank you.
I wish the question had elaborated a little bit more on what their real concern was, because absolutely Telecom Park is a cash cow for us. And we want that to be built out to the max, because that's your think tank areas, that's the businesses, that there's no retail there, but there's all workers there, and so we're happy to have that. When council was, when that issue was brought before us of the housing division, that had already gone through Hillsborough County and some other areas, and unfortunately there was no legal reason for us to say no. And so many times the items before us are, I hate to say our hands are tied, but if there's no reason to say no, and it's gone through all the bells and whistles through the Planning Commission and through our own permitting department, we say yes. Now, does that mean that we should ask more questions? Absolutely. Does it mean that we should say, well, exactly as someone else pointed out, how will they get out of that new subdivision? We have other areas that we would love to move. At one point, someone suggested that we keep heading for the the little airport, the executive airport, and maybe turn that into Temple Terrace Airport. I don't know that Hillsborough County would give us that. I doubt that they would allow that. But absolutely, we can't just say, well, the Planning Commission said that it's okay. We have to ask those questions, and therefore, the council needs to be aware of what exactly is coming before us. Many times we don't even see it before the Friday evening before, and that gives us very little time to do the research. So I've been asking for that for the whole 4 years I've been on board, to be educated as to why someone is doing this, why are they moving there, what are they bringing, how many people are they bringing, how many cars, how many bodies are they bringing to our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers.
Okay, we really do want to encourage growth. In Telecom Park, there's still some areas that are in the city that can be built out, and we want that. It is a great cash cow. In areas outside the city, we want to try to get annexed in where we can control them. If we can't get annexed in, we want to work with Hillsborough County to do the best we can to control that growth out there or manage it. Back in our city, though, the things we have are site plan reviews and our zoning laws to make sure that all the projects that are done in our city are done correctly and to our standards. And I really think it should have been Temple Terrace International Airport.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next round, Mr. Sisler. So the question, do you believe the city of Temple Terrace should continue to subsidize the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club?
Well, okay. That is another issue that I worked with the administration on, along with Don, to help decipher what happened and what transacted after Integrity left. Got to understand you have to define subsidy, okay? Do I believe there should be any further subsidy towards the club? No, and I don't think the club's ever going to need it. Can we do anything about what we have going on right now? No, we can't do anything about that. This is a problem that the city inherited as a result of a default on a bank loan. Irrespective of how it got here, this is a long-standing issue. The club defaulted, the city was next in line, the city had to take over or we would have been in a technical default. So the city went out and they refinanced it, gave the club a little bit more money, and for a long time the club was able to take care of things. Membership dwindled, things got in trouble, they fell behind, Integrity stepped in, we restructured the deal. So up until then it was, we paid $260 a year for the loan, they reimbursed us $260 a year for the loan. When the membership was so low they couldn't do that any further, then we made a deal with Integrity for $125,000 a year. So as long as they kept doing that, and then we stretch out. We pay off the debt that the city incurred for them in 2025. The club pays the city for another 24 years after that. I think it's like 2043, somewhere in that vicinity. Having said that, I do not believe that the club will need an additional subsidy. They're working hard to get it fixed, and I believe that they've got the right mix and the right group of people in there now with the management. We're kind of stuck with what we've got. We have legal obligations, but I don't think we should, and I don't think we ever will have to write a check to the club in order for them to keep their doors open. They're going to do that on their own. Thank you.
As frightening as it was, I think the issue that came before us last year was a good thing for us. It was a wake-up call for the country club that said, oh, we're not running this place like a business. We're running this like a fun club. And it was a wake-up call for the citizens who said, oh my goodness, if this goes away, what will happen to my neighborhood? What will happen to my property values? So, no second guessing on my part, the council who decided years ago to step in as that parent and sign the loan, such as many of us have done for our kids when they bought their first car. Sure, Dad, I'm going to make all the payments. And as long as they did, everything was good, right? So this is what happened with the club. They failed. They started to slip. They had issues. We've all heard them ad nauseum. But now they know that that can never happen again. And we know that we don't want the club to go away. And as a city, we definitely don't want to run the Golf and Country Club. So at this point, let's not second guess them. Let's allow the country club to do what it should do. Let's all enjoy the benefits of it being in our city, and let's all stay awake and make sure that it doesn't happen again. All of those things are in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and eventually it will work its way out. Again, we just have to be vigilant on both sides.
Mr. Chambers?
Okay, and this question which started, should the city subsidize the club? The answer is no. But it's implied that the city is currently subsidizing the club, and that answer is still no, because as Gil said, the loan was restructured. It's a legal document. The city will get all its money back and with more interest down the road. So there is no subsidy going on now. When I worked, and when the club first got into trouble, it was before I was a club member, and I did a lot of research on what would happen if the city took over the club, because it would fall to Leisure Services to manage it. And it scared me, and it scared me in the way of the budget. So from a citizen point of view, I'm very thankful that we have the club that's paying all the bills right now for that piece of property. For a recreator and also a citizen, I'm very thankful that the citizens get to use that property a lot of different times also, whether you're walking your dog, playing Frisbee, coming out enjoying the Arts Festival on the club property, Brewfest, 4th of July, all those activities. So it is also just a city park. But I don't think that the club will ever go ask for the city subsidy. Thank you.
Mr. Stats?
Well, I concur with Mr. Chambers and Mr. Schischler about the subsidy thing. It isn't a subsidy. It's an interest deferral. Again, they're going to pay us for another 20 years after we pay our debt off. One of the things that Mr. Schischler and myself have been able to do is work closely with the country club. And we see, anyhow I do, great strides happening there. The management team that they have now is second to none. These guys are good at what they do. They brought in a consulting firm, Kristovich and Associates. Mr. Kristovich has worked with both Gil and I, and he's got a handle on what's going on there, as does Mr. Music, the new GM. So they're going in the right direction. Where they had the big problem was they had the Integrity Group come in and was going to run it and make everything great again. Well, one day they woke up and said Integrity was gone, filed bankruptcy, and took all the money. That put the club in a tremendous debt problem. Got a club, got no money. They took all the money with them, which is what created the problem. It'll always be a golf course or a green area. The city doesn't own that property. It's owned by the Palmer family. We just lease it. I think it's for $1 a year. And it's in the documents that it always be a green space or a golf course. We never want to lose the golf course. Never. It's instrumental and has been instrumental in this city for many, many years. It's now designated as a historical site. One of, I think, the only one in the state of Florida. So it's essential that we keep going in a forward direction with the country club.
Thank you. Okay, the next round is Donahue. If you received a $1 million grant that you could use for the city in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
Dr. Leonard, if some of you remember with the Hillsborough County Schools, used to say, every little million counts. But unfortunately, $1 million doesn't go as far as it used to. I suppose on my wish list, if I had $1 million right now, I would put it aside to start the foundation for a new police station. It doesn't have to be a new building, you know. We have a public works building that could easily be remodeled to be that police station, because our police officers are at risk every day, and so are the people in our city hall. And so $1 million would not build a new building, but it would definitely get us started. And if you think about it, the next time you're in City Hall, I want you to see there's a bay where the police cars pull up. And they either have to bring the suspect up the stairs, putting the officer at risk, or they have to take them up the same elevator. Obviously, they're probably not going to let you get in. But the point is, it's definitely a compromised situation. So it's not glamorous, it's not beautiful, it won't do you know, the amazing things that you would think $1 million, but it would be the beginning of something that would be beneficial to our officers and to all of our citizens.
Mr. Chambers.
Well, one of the easy answers would be give raises to employees. The trouble with that is if it's a one-time $1 million, then you burden future budgets with that. It couldn't sustain that. So I would use it to fix all the deferred maintenance in our city facilities, vehicles, and our roads, all the infrastructure. We have a lot of deferred maintenance, a lot of needs that our buildings have. That'll take the $1 million in a heartbeat. Also, our water system, it's kind of an enterprise fund, but streets and some of that. But I would use that to fix all of our problems that we've been putting off over the years.
Thank you. Mr. Stats.
Well, $1 million is a lot of money, no doubt about that. If I could give $1 million to the city, I think where I'd use it first is first responders. And the reason I say that is because what I shared with you earlier, we have problems there. Maybe we could take some of that money and get it going in the right direction so we can be competitive. We'll never be competitive with Hillsborough County or Tampa. Their tax base is far too big. But we need to be competitive with Plant City and municipalities that are the same size we are, because they're all pretty much on the same tax base we are. So it would be pertinent to use that money to try to maintain our city staff. And probably some of the best ambassadors that we have at this city is our sanitation guys. I think everybody in this room will agree with that. Some of those guys have been there 40 years. We don't want the guy that's been there 40 years to not come back for 41. So it's essential, if we're going to keep these people, that we treat them properly and be in accordance with the other municipalities. That to me is a priority. And of course, the retention, if we have to train a new person in any position, that costs us $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And you're losing the experience of the man that's been there for, or the lady that's been there for 3, 4, 5 years. That experience all goes out the door. So it's essential that we have retention. The only way we can have retention is with high morale, good benefits, and comparable pay and benefits to other municipalities our size.
Thank you. Mr. Chisler.
Could I ask you to read that again?
If you received a $1 million grant that you could use for the city in any way you wanted,
Okay.
what would you do with it and why?
Okay, I wanted to hear that, but we could do whatever we needed to with it. I'm a very fiscal conservative individual, and we for years kept our property value, our property tax levels at an artificially low rate, okay? And we dipped deeply into our reserves. Our reserves are a rainy day fund. We're riding pretty high now with property values. How long is that going to continue? Everybody here knows what happened in 2008. We can go build a new police station. We can get all the new shiny trucks. We're doing that. We adjust the progression schedules. We can compensate. Police, I too received the police and fire endorsements, and I spoke with them, and they're willing to take the time to get this done. We don't have to do it overnight. We don't have to make it so we can't keep going fiscally into forever into the future. but we got to get our bank accounts fixed. We got to put our reserves there, because we're going to have another rainy day coming here soon. I don't know what is going to happen, but I don't want to have to come back to you guys when I'm sitting on council and say, you know something, I wish we still had that $1 million in the bank, because we now have to increase your property taxes 10%, whatever be the number, and we take it up to, you know, we're 6.555 now, well, we got to go to 7.25, because we didn't have the 11% increase next year that we did the year before. I think I'd just put the money in the bank and keep it. Once we get to a sustainable level of where our reserves are the 25-26% of what our spending is, then we can start spending a little bit out of there as we need it. We don't have to get glamorous. We need to get back to basics, sound, fundamental financial accounting issues. Let's put it away.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask this question next. And this begins with Mr. Chambers. What is the most important social challenge facing the city, in your opinion? What do you propose as a solution?
Okay, social challenge. That's a tough one, but we'll change that to social challenge. We need to be more, social. And what I mean by that is, we do, but what I mean by that is our city has a great opportunity for special events. We do great special events, brings our community together, 4th of July, Brewfest, I mentioned those before, but we need to do a lot more of those. We need to do more special events. That gets people together, that gets people talking, that gets people talking to each other and staying away from social media. Okay. So we need to get people out and about. So I would like to increase our special events. I know the city Leisure Services just hired a special events person. That's a great move for the city, to someone to specialize in that, and I would like to support that initiative. And that gets people out and about, talking to each other face to face and all social media.
Mr. Staggs.
That's a tough one. Of course, we want to be very diversified. And I think we are a diversified city. We have a lot of people from all over the world that live here. So socializing is important for us to try to do that. And I'm not quite sure what the events need to be, but I think we do need to have some type of events that will have everybody come together and get to know each other better. The things that we've asked for in the past is, for example, the redevelopment area. We said, why don't we have a food truck rally? That'll bring people out, they can talk to each other. But we were told we can't do that because Winn-Dixie doesn't allow anybody to sell food in that area other than them, which I thought was a not acceptable offer or answer. But that's the type of thing that we should do more of. There's a lot of things that we can do as a city. We have people that are quite competent to come up with the social things that we need to do, and we just need to have them dig in and come up with some ideas. I'm not an expertise in social gatherings, so we have to rely on staff to do that, and I think we've got a pretty good staff that is in place now that can give us some good ideas to use.
Thank you. Mr. Schisler.
Social issues. I don't know that having a party is going to address social issues. My interpretation of the question is, when I moved here, we were maybe 12, 13,000 residents in Temple Terrace. We're now 25, 27,000 residents. We're a melting pot. We've got everybody here. We have Muslims, we have African Americans, we have white, we have Hispanic. We have quite a diverse mix. I've heard it estimated that 46% of the city is of a minority nature. And I believe that we need to have the outreach and have the melding together of the different ethnicities. A lot of the areas, there's a lot of different ethnicities mixed in within our city. But I don't know that we have the inclusiveness, okay? And I believe that that's rampant right now in social media, if you get sucked into it. I'm not saying we have to sit down and sing Kumbaya, but I'm thinking we have to, if something's going on, then we need to have an outreach. We need to have the inclusivity of everybody, every group that we have within our city. And I think people think that there isn't one. And if there is, and we do have this in place, then we need to share it. We need to expound upon it and let everybody know that we do have it. I think that's the crux of the question. And I think we can do a better job at it, but I think we got a good city here, and I think we need to keep it going.
Thank you. And Ms. Dunn?
I may have to lean on the podium for this because as the event planner in the room, some of this talk makes me tired. Do we need more social in our city? The difference between the social that we used to have and the socials we have now are that in the old days, we all knew that we were going to have the parade, we were going to have the arts festival, we were going to have this or that, and we all showed up. We did not have to advertise. Now, if we don't advertise, and by the way, we stopped advertising. We never really started an advertising campaign. So now we're reaching out to people. Come to Temple Terrace. You want an event? We have them. You look at the calendar. Mr. Chambers referred to all the events. There is not a month in Temple Terrace where there's not an event going on. Everyone is welcome. But the difference is now we're actually inviting people to come in. And we've come a long way in doing that. It used to be that we could put banners up on the street signs around, and everybody knew it was time to go to the arts festival. Now we have to go out into social media and to all the other places. The difference is that we need to tell people who we are. You would not own a restaurant and not tell people who you were. You cannot rely on everybody knowing your name. So I'm not sure where the questioner was going with this. I can tell you that if you go to the Arts Festival, you will see a beautiful blend of our neighbors, and never turned anyone away. We're not going to turn anyone away. But the real object here is that we have to stop pretending that we can do it ourselves. We have to open it up. I won't start telling you about how we managed to do that for the Brewfest, but 1,500 people coming here to stand at Woodmont Park for an afternoon. They didn't all come from Temple Terrace. They were from 73 zip codes.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try one more round. This is our last question, and it's going to start with Mr. Stats. If you are not elected, what will you do to try to work on ideas or issues important to you?
Well, I'll probably do what I'm doing now. Like I shared with you earlier, I have attended nearly every council meeting for the past 3 or 4 years. And if I'm not elected, then I'll probably continue to do the same thing. And I'll continue to go to the various departments and city management and council members and let them know what I think. And I don't always go along with the flow. I guess that's the businessman coming out of me. Things got to make sense to me, dollars and cents wise. If they don't, then I'm willing to share with anybody. It's essential that if you're not going to be on council, which one of us will not be, that you stay involved. And if you're involved, you can probably help nearly as much as being a councilman. If you're going to be a councilman, it's almost a full-time job. If you're going to be an effective councilman, it's almost a full-time job. So if I don't get elected, then I will continue to do everything that I'm doing now. I will continue to try to make this city better, come up with the ideas that I think will make it better. I will continue to go to the council meetings, and if I have opinions, I will share them. I will do whatever I have to do to continue to make the city as great as it's going to be in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Schisler?
If I'm unsuccessful in this bid, I too will continue working in everything that I've been doing up so far, working with the finance department, working with the audit committee, giving my expertise in accounting and finance after 25 years back to the city in any capacity that I can. I'm already serving on the the Golf and Country Club Strategic Advisory Committee. I would probably continue with that. Going to city council meetings is kind of fun sometimes. My family thinks I'm nuts, but it is fun and to get involved and to see what's going on with it. But no, it's I have a vested interest in continuing to work with the city and make it better in any way, shape, or form that I can. I got 4 little grandchildren who I adore, and I want Temple Terrace to be as great to them as it has been to me, to my wife Lisa, and to our kids Gibby and Jennifer. You can't walk away. I just don't know how I can walk away from it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Donahue?
Don't ask my husband to answer that question. If I am not reelected, the sad thing about it is that it would mean that I would step down from the Heart Board, where I worked diligently to bring transportation back to our city when the budget cut out an entire line. If I'm not reelected, I will no longer be part of the League of Cities, where I won the Hometown Hero Award, or that's probably not the real name of the award, but I've been active, very active, in making sure that the legislators in Tallahassee remembered that the closest form of government is this one. And so that would remove me from the League of Cities, and I would miss that work. If I'm not elected, I would not be able to sit and make decisions keeping you in mind, as well as my family and my neighbors. So I hope that I don't have to find something to do. Those of you who know me know that that's a joke, because I can definitely fill my calendar, but it's not about filling my calendar. It's about what would I not be able to do for my citizens or my neighbors in Temple Terrace. So I'm not even going to entertain what I might do if I was not working for you, because I want to keep working for you. I love this job. And I'll tell you what, it's a lot harder to get this job than it is to do this job. So thank you for being here tonight and listening to us.
Thank you. Mr. Chambers?
Well, I don't know what else I could do if I wasn't elected. I'm on a lot of boards now, a lot of committees. I stay involved with the community, out and about at the rec center, golf course, different groups. If elected, though, I would have to give some of that up. So, you know, maybe that's a good thing. But anyway, I wouldn't really do anything more, just try to stay engaged with the city staff, all my friends that still work there, all the different clubs I'm involved with. That's what I would do.
Thank you. And thank you all for your responses to those questions. We've come to the end of the allotted time now for the candidates' responses. And so at this time, each candidate will have the opportunity to make their closing statement. You'll each have 2 minutes to speak. We're going to go in the same order as the opening comments. So that means we're going to begin with Ms. Donahue for this last round.
I don't know what you're missing on TV tonight, but it must not be good. But thank you so much for staying. Mike and I have been married for 48 years. I always throw that out there because everybody brags on how long they're married, so I have to throw that punchline in. I so appreciate the ability and the time that I have, and that my family is willing, and thank you to each of you children who are here, to allow me to serve you. Because it is a time-consuming job. And it is one that I give my 100%. I read everything that is presented to us. I interview citizens. I talk to people about what they think we should do. I am not voting just for me. I am voting because I represent you. So I want to continue to do that. I sincerely believe that you recognize that the contrarian in me who says, but wait, there's a reason for that. If I sat there at the dais and everything that went by me, I said, yes, yes, okay, sure. That's not me. I'm always that one. I've always been that one. Any one of you who serve on boards with me know that we have a great idea, and then I'm that one that says, but what about, or but wait. And I'm going to be that person, and I'm going to continue to be that person, because those but waits sometimes are what changes the whole criteria of what's going to happen for you and for the rest of us. So please don't think, oh, Sherry's got it. We love Sherry. She's great. We're going to vote for her. And then and stay home. So make sure you go, whether it's by mail or early voting or on that day. Please make sure you vote. And when you go, take a neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chamber.
Okay, I too want to thank everyone for coming out, and I do know at 8 o'clock was Big Bang Theory, 8:30's Young Sheldon. Hopefully everybody DVR'd it. Again, thank you again for coming out. You know, I've worked hard for the city. I've lived here all my life. I want to continue to serve. I want to be your representative. To echo Sherry, please get out and vote. You've got 4 good candidates up here, 4 community-involved people up here. I hope you saw that from the night. So please get out and vote. Also want to kind of a plug. Saturday's fire department open house and Terrace Reads at Temple Terrace Elementary. The rec center does their fall festival on October 27th at the Family Complex, and please don't forget the Arts Festival November 10th and 11th. Good community events. And again, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Again, in case you forgot, my name's Gil Schussler. I'm running to be your Temple Terrace City Council. I bring 25 years of management experience, leadership experience, running multi-million-dollar companies, and I know and I understand the physics of the city. I know how the finances work, and my experience and the leadership that I want to bring to this council, I think will benefit everybody for generations to come. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. I know it's a lot of people have other things to do, but I want to thank my wife and my kids for their support. My granddaughter asked me the other day, she says, Pop, why are you doing this? I love Temple Terrace, and I want Temple Terrace to be good for you and your kids, and that's my contribution. Please get out and vote. If you're here, you're going to vote. I know that. Some of you have already voted. I hope to, I seriously hope to be your council member, and I want to do it, and I plan on doing a good job. And I humbly ask for your vote on November 7th. 6th, thank you. Not 7th, 6th.
Mr. Staff.
Since I started campaigning, I've been carrying this book around. I call it a promise book. It was my daughter's idea that jot down what you hear from people when you're out there. And I've done that. There's lots of notes in here. And the reason I call it a promise book is because I promise I will work on it. I can't promise I'll solve it, but I will certainly work on it. I have a tremendous amount of business experience, and I think that's going to come into play big time with the downtown redevelopment area. I can use that expertise and knowledge to help us move forward, and move forward the way we should. I'm retired now. I have plenty of time to give to the city. The city's been very good to me and my family. We've lived here 42 years again, and we just couldn't ask for more from a city been able to have some successful businesses, and that's because everybody here supports them. That's very important. Of course, I need to thank my family. Running for council is a tough job. I mean, you need a lot of help. And my kids, and my wife, and my son-in-law, all sporting my shirts, you know, getting out there walking on Saturdays when it's 95 degrees. But they're in it because I'm in it. I want to give you the best reason that I can give you is I want to be able to support and I want to be able to represent you. Besides that, my granddaughter said, I want to see Pop on TV. So that's important.
Thank you all very much. Well, we have come to the end of this candidates forum this evening. Hasn't this been great? It's been fun. I have to say that, honestly, I enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I want to thank the City of Temple Terrace for making all the great arrangements for this event. They did a great job. Thank you, the citizens of Temple Terrace, including all the audience who participated. And please join me in expressing our appreciation to our candidates. Thank you.